Welcome to Superhero Conversations, a podcast saga with innovation leaders who are at SuperNova, the #1 tech innovation event happening here in Antwerp, Belgium. And in today's episode, I welcome two superheroes of B2B sales. Welcome John Lindsay and Christopher Engman from Megadeals.
Thank you so much.
Great to be here.
John and Christopher, this is going to be a heavy B2B episode, B2B sales episode. So could you first give some explanation on how did you end up in this field?
Well, I grew up in a town that was very famous for its theater, and I thought my future would be to make impact at scale by becoming a film producer, actor, director. After I did my thesis on a company in Canada, it was actually my first tech company, it was a winery, I got addicted to the idea of growing companies as a kind of living form of art, a much more positive way to make impact at scale. So that got me into the business world. I realized this is a way to change behavior towards better things. And if I could help to scale B2B companies in a very efficient way, that would be a good way to fulfill my mission. We met because, I guess around 2003 and 4, I'd done many scale-ups. I'd worked with some multinationals as well, people like Shell, IBM, Philips, and NXP Semiconductors. But on the young scale-up side, did many scale-ups as well. And we partnered on one, and it didn't work out well. And we discovered that the traditional model of growing B2B complex technologies doesn't work using the standard format, and we'll get into that in a bit more. So we met then and then regrouped in 2019 when I'd heard a podcast where Christopher described how he had sold his company and stepped into a company called Klimian. It was a climate tech company in Sweden that recycled waste warm water into electricity. Mm-hmm. And when he joined, it had $3 million in revenue, had maybe 1.5 leads a month, and it wasn't growing. And 2 years later, after Bill Gates and Richard Branson had invested, listed on the NASDAQ stock exchange, it was a great success. And people said, "How did you do that?" And I was curious how he did that. And so he wrote a book on it.
And also with an order intake jump from 3 to 90 million euros in 2 years.
Okay, we're going to get in depth on how did you do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So Christopher, what's the background? How did you end up in Megadeals?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 10 years old, actually, but more like real entrepreneur from the age of 24. So I think we met when I was 25 or something. And we built the world's first SaaS platform for gift certificates, which is now at least in the Nordic, the market dominant company bought by KKR. But the first time around, we couldn't get sales and marketing to scale. We were selling a fairly complex platform into large retailers mainly, where the decisions were not only multiple stakeholders, but multiple stakeholder groups. So you could view the world as you have B2C, you have transactional B2B, which is like phone subscriptions, you have demo sales, which is you do a bunch of cold calls and book demos, and you run demos with fairly junior salespeople. You bring in senior guys later. And then you have complex B2B with multiple stakeholders. And the fifth one is complex B2B with multiple stakeholder groups. And that happens typically when you sell something cross-functionally to 100 companies with 100 employees and up, because decision-making starts to be distributed with country leaders and business unit leaders and functional areas. And the 6 complexities when you sell into ecosystem, like if you sell a wind, like this one, a wind power plant, is not just contractual parties, it's actually a multi-party deal. So in the high complexity with multiple stakeholder groups and ecosystem sales, the regular model for first marketing, then sales doesn't really work. So, but I realized you need to do something around marketing here. So I founded the world's first platform for account-based marketing, which is by definition marketing towards your more important deals, where you intentionally target multiple stakeholder groups beyond maybe the 5 people you meet to really drive and sway decisions your way.
Mm-hmm. And for the context, so you founded the gift certificate company, then you went kind of more into the SaaS platform that does account-based marketing.
And in between, I was part of launching the world's first SaaS platform for the tax industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of SaaS and a lot of...
I founded 11 companies.
Oh, yeah. That's quite a lot. That's quite a lot. Yeah. So you kind of already went in depth of how the current state of B2B sales should be reformed, should be different. So maybe, guys, you could explain what is wrong with today's B2B sales model.
Well, if you take the Aaron Ross model, typically, you hire inside salespeople, you do outbound mail, you do in-mail, cold sales calls, and if you're in a B2B complex market, you usually have what we call a finite market, so a limited number of customers. It could be 10, it could be 200, maybe less than 1,000, but not more than that. And when you use these old techniques, you tend to burn the bridges, right? You're a no-name person in a no-name company in a new category that didn't exist, trying to get a meeting, and people will shut you out and ghost you, and you can't afford to do that in a finite market. So it just doesn't work.
Yeah, so there's you could contrast what we call the Aaron Ross model, which is maybe only known by the geeks, but it's, like John said, it's a very sequential view on marketing a lead, then a junior sales rep, and then you bring in a more senior sales reps. A very sequential view that works really well if you're selling to thousands and thousands of SMBs. If you sell a slightly more complex deal to medium-sized and large corporations, that playbook doesn't work. So for that, we've created the Megadeals playbook.
Mm-hmm. And for our listeners, SMBs are small
and medium-sized businesses. So if you sell to companies that 50, 80, 20 employees, you can kind of do a more sequential, because it's okay, like John said, it's okay to burn 10 out of 11 bridges.
Yes.
That's fine. I mean, I'm not saying it's good, but it's kind of okay as long as you convert. But if you are selling something more complex, and especially like John said, if you have what we call a finite market, which is a finer word for saying typically one industry or a certain combination of attributes. So you end up with less than 1,000 target companies and sometimes even less than 100. Mm-hmm. So if you just take a macro perspective, if you sell something towards a traditional industry, oil and gas, pulp and paper, transport, steel, cement, all of them are consolidated. So all of them have less than 100 companies dominating 80% of the volumes. So if you want to be a dominant player selling into one of the conventional industries, you need to be very successful with those less than 100 companies. I mean, obviously you can take deals, there can be thousands of companies on the last 20%, but the volume, if you want to be the unicorn, the category leader, you need to be very successful with those 80% that are consolidated around actually a relatively small number of companies.
So you cannot really afford to lose the 10 from 11 companies.
No.
So you need to kind of get those, all of the 11 companies if you want to be
right. You
successful.
Need to do it right.
Mm-hmm. So we have identified the problem. So what is the solution?
Yeah, so the in this sequential world, which is not the solution for the high complexity world, you're emailing, like John said, you're in-mailing, you're cold calling, you have long lists. You're like, it's fine. Like they say, no problem. And then yes, meeting. No, yes, meeting. Mm-hmm. On the other side where we work, if your addressable market, as I said, 80% is consolidated around 110 companies, if you have 1 out of 11 in hit rate to get the meeting, and if you're calling them again the next week, you're gradually burning, we call it BBR, burning bridges rates. So you're often looking at what's your conversion rate. But in a finite market, you also need to look at what's my burning bridges rate. It cannot be high, because if I ruin my reputation with these 110 companies and their key stakeholders that I want to speak to, as John said, you get it's like the market is freezing. You can't put your finger on it, but you're not getting in. You're being blocked. Sometimes literally you're spam filtered. You put they mark you in Truecaller as a salesperson in the phone. So all of a sudden you're locked out.
Yes.
So the way to do it is to think, here's a sequential view, here's a parallel view. So here, marketing and sales needs to work in parallel. You also need to think, here is single threading, here is multi-threading. So let's say you have within Shell, our Dutch friends, you have a stakeholder map. Stakeholder map is a cooler word of what are the people and roles you need to either formally win or informally win to get the deal. Let's say they're 10 key people and around them 27 others that have strong influence on this kind of decision. What you need to do is to think multi-threading. So you run media targeting. You target all of these individuals on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and news sites to build the company brand, your personal brand, the category, your reference, and all of it first. So, and then you're at the back of it, you're engaging with them gradually. I sometimes call it the gym flow. So imagine, I'll soon get back to the line of thought, but imagine I know you and you don't know me. You're an important potential client. I see you in the gym that I frequently go to. Option one is that I just go, hey, I say hi to you immediately. You've never seen me before. You would probably professionally be polite to me, but in your head, you're going, who's this freak?
Yeah.
Right. So I immediately lose status in your eyes. That's option one. It's not very likely that we will go to a cafe later and speak. Option two is that first time I see you, you've already seen the Megadeals brand, you've seen my face, you've seen John's face across media, news sites like Dagblad, like what are the big ones in Belgium?
The Tade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've seen our faces, our brand, our references, even from the Benelux market. And then all of a sudden I'm at the same gym. But instead of me going straight to you, even though I could sense that you've probably seen our brand, my face, I nod at you. First time I see you. Second time I nod at you again. Third time I might say hi, and then still not engaging with you, just passing by hi. Maybe fifth, sixth time I intentionally go to the machine next to you, doing whatever, beach muscles. But then I might go, oh, hey, I've seen you here. I'm Christopher, by the way. And then I take a step back.
Okay.
And then I gradually, so maybe the 10th time we engage in a longer conversation. Mm-hmm. And then the win rate, because now you might not say it, but you've seen me in media. So it's almost like reverse power. I have a more elevated brand than you in your eyes, because you're now, that's why politicians are buying media channels or taking over. I mean, media is power. So I'm now elevated in your head. So when I ask you, why don't we take a coffee after the gym? It's almost awkward if you say no. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I go straight to you and I ask immediately, I'm the awkward one. Does it make sense?
Yes, absolutely does. And it's not only about kind of real face-to-face interactions. It's also about the kind of online interactions that you don't actually kind of engage on the first go.
Well, and I think this is an important element to bring in. So one of the mistakes that B2B companies often do is they push the brand. Mm-hmm. What we're saying, especially in a scale-up, is you take the founder, or what we call the rainmaker, the one who actually closes the deal. He's very good at it.
Or 2, 3 ones, yeah.
Yeah, it could be the CTO and 1 or 2 others. And we embed their faces into the ads. So there's a person linked to the company, and that creates reputation and trust and recognition. Mm. And then that feeds into the social selling elements that the person might be involved in.
So the flow here, and this is, we created a system around this. So first of all, we found a way to target what you normally can do in LinkedIn alone. You can target the right companies and the right roles, but the problem is that most stakeholders outside the commercial space have a LinkedIn profile, but they're not frequently there. It's not their gym.
Yes.
So you need to reach the same stakeholders across Instagram, Facebook, news sites, and YouTube as well, which is one of our innovations. And this is particularly important when you're selling to non-commercial roles like R&D, production, logistics, finance, blah, 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 science. They are, yes, they have a LinkedIn profile, but they're not hanging out there. So the flow here, and you do this in a multi-threaded way. So you're targeting these 27 people. As John said, we're putting not just our client's brand or the Megadeals brand and our faces, also our references and everything. And then when I start to, so the metaphor here is with the gym flow is that I now start to like and comment some of their posts, but I can see they've seen our ads extensively. They've even clicked or visit our website. And I start to nod at them and say hi by commenting some of their posts. And they're like, oh, I've seen it. It's the same guy. I saw him somewhere in the media. He's like a celebrity. And then gradually I move it into engaging in a very light chat, and then gradually ask for a meeting. And then the same thing happens as I described to you at the gym. I have elevated the company brand, my brand. I've also invested in you. So when I ask you for a coffee, you're the awkward one if you say no. So all of a sudden, you can engage very senior titles with a crazy high win rate and without burning your reputation.
And I would argue that it's a super effective tactic, but don't you find that it's kind of two-faced, and that it's I would say it's not really kind of ethical way to do it?
That's a good question. Yeah.
That you actually kind of you engage with the people with the intention, with the only intention of actually selling it. And first, if you're a cold caller, you have the intention and you indicate, yo, this is the cold call. Are you able to take 5 minutes? But if you engage in a kind of casual conversation, then a person might think that you are interested in them, but you're actually interested in the decision that they make.
Well, let me ask you a rhetorical question. So if you see a lady that you're really, really interested in, the honest version would be to barge into her saying, hi, I want to date you. That would be the honest version.
Yes.
The more successful version would be to do the similar thing, but to get a relationship. I mean, you could claim that any kind of marketing and sales tactic is dishonest, much like any kind of, like in dating, even if you're super on, is not your advantage. I mean, you need to be on, but give them space, right?
Yes.
It's the same. So there's so many similarities between human, like any kind of human relationship and business. So I don't think it's. I don't think it's wrong.
I'd like to address
I understand your question. Yeah,
in a different way and
a much better way.
Different. Again, the idea is about building trust and authenticity and authority. And the messaging structure that we use is very much talking about the domain of your industry. So these advertisements that we create around your face as the rainmaker will be talking about issues that are relevant to that industry, change drivers, categories, subcategories. We talk that way.
References, etc.
And we talk to them about that, not even about feeds and speeds in the product. So a lot of the problems with traditional B2B sales is they talk problem, solution. The problem with a complex technology in a new category, you're solving a problem that many of them haven't yet discovered. So if you go into the oil and gas industry, for example, and you talk about the change drivers and you talk about the categories to address those change drivers and subcategories, even just that, and you're making these messages available in the media that they consume outside of LinkedIn, could be the Tate or next to the BBC or CNN. I mean, high profile, high valuable real estate, where they consume the content that they choose to engage with on their terms. That's very authentic, right? So if they're getting exposures on that, they're becoming familiar with you. And you're normalizing a new category in their minds so that when you eventually do reach out, they say, you know what? We do have a problem. Our buyer committee has agreed we have a problem, and we've agreed we can't solve it ourselves. And at that point, they become buyers. But you've already communicated to them when they're in that stage of deciding what the problem state is, and that they need to go outside. So you're actually helping them in the way we communicate to go down the decision funnel to eventually say, okay, what is the solution? What is the subcategory and the attributes that are going to solve this problem for us?
So I guess we have just found a way to close a lot of sales, is approach sales like you would approach a girl.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, and when you're talking about...
I mean, there's the honest way, like, hey, do you want to date? They're like, who the F are you?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about a salesperson, there are sales teams and they're more senior salespeople, more junior. What is the intrinsic value that a salesperson should bring in the company? Because there is a notion that, salespeople are just, yappers who drink margaritas on the beach and get on a call, close a sale and, have their money. But what is your opinion? Why are salespeople super important?
So I can comment so again, we focus on the more high complexity space. So not the sequential Aaron Ross model. So we know most about this. Here, one trait I've seen is that, actually going back to authenticity that you comment on. So the really successful and they don't have to sell huge deals, but still high complexity deals. They honestly want to help the client. So this is a very important thing I've seen. If the buyer can tell that you only want to close the deal, they get defensive. If they can sense you honestly want to help them, they open up. So I had in one of my teams earlier, I had a salesperson where I felt this. And I followed her on some calls, and I could sense it even more. And since this is not scientifically based, it's just my experience. Like, when the customer can sense you want to close the deal, instead of helping them, they don't want to buy from you. So I asked her, do you prefer to help them or close the deal? She's like, close the deal. Okay.
So the intrinsic value of a salesperson is actually, building the trust first.
Yeah.
You're the link between the huge enterprise and multiple stakeholders inside that enterprise, and actually communicating the intrinsic value that your company brings to the other company, and you can actually kind of be the connective link of actually representing that you are here to help.
Yeah.
You're here to solve your problem. Yes, you paid us money, but it's fair because you solve this problem.
Yeah, so it's a real facilitative process. And that salesperson needs to connect the dots in his world to be able to bring all the complexity of the deal around to how it's going to move their numbers, solve their problems, real business problems, to deliver the value.
The best people in the high complexity space they also have certain personal characteristics which can tie into your question. So first of all, they score very high on pattern recognition. Like, if you do a capability test, they'll have high score on pattern recognition, which is maybe a talent that is unfortunately not so easy to train. It's a certain talent. They are also, so if you imagine 3 rooms, in one room we put the jappers, the regular salespeople. The second room we put the ones that are really good in the high complexity deals with multiple stakeholder groups or even ecosystem sales. In the third room, we put bigger company CEOs. And we don't tell you who is in which room. You wouldn't be able to tell a difference between room 2 and 3 in terms of how they behave. Mm-hmm. So with the room 2 and 3, you'll feel high integrity. You can sense authority. It's like a magnet field, because they have the group CEOs of larger companies are very good at pattern recognition. They see the bigger picture. They know how to command the forces. Same skills. So often the greatest people at doing larger deals, they often, if they want to, sometimes they just want to continue doing amazing deals. Sometimes they transition into being CEOs. It's very similar skills. Whereas the jappers, they will never be a CEO. Not that that's not the goal for most people, but these guys are more like as actually aligned with your. They're like, yeah, boo. I mean, you can be fun over here as well, but it's fun with a kind of credible tone, high integrity. Also things like these two have, group 2 and 3 have also another characteristic. If you tell them something that they disagree with, they'll tell you without fear, regardless of your power. They're like, no, I actually disagree with you. This is how I view it. So they have very high social bravery, both of these two groups. Whereas these guys are like, yeah, they agree with you. And they a bit, what do you call it? Licking.
Yes.
Let's skip the first word. There,
So,
licking.
and John, maybe you could kind of identify. So Christopher mentioned that it's high integrity. What differentiates the yappers between the kind of more
Great, high complexity deal makers.
yes.
Yeah.
So high integrity, they can say no, they can disagree with you.
Yeah.
And what else differentiates those two groups? That I definitely believe it's a spectrum. It's not only.
Can I say one more
yes.
thing on the integrity? So what I've seen again and again is that especially C-level and board, they want people to challenge them. They're a bit fed up with their subordinates always kind of smiling and, kissing ass.
Yes.
When they meet someone that can intellectually challenge them, they're like, okay.
An example of that would be, and can your system do this? And can your system do that? And and when the person says, no, it cannot do this. And by the way, if you don't do that, here are the 3 or 4 risks. We cannot do everything. So to be able to admit also your limitations and risks to be mitigated together builds integrity. Or even to walk away from a deal saying, actually, we'd love to do business with you, but actually your business isn't ready for our kind of solution right now.
So kind of
The japper would smooth over the disadvantages. The high performers would say, no, that particular part you ask for, we cannot deliver on. We do some of it, but not fully. Or,
you had a great example with that Turkish company with Plimian, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you can tell a little
Yeah,
story.
sure. So there's also about daring to disqualify even the biggest names. So there was in one earlier company, the CTO for Turkey's largest utility reached out. So he had studied our videos, our website, and he basically said, look, this was an incoming email. I've studied this, and that, and like, we have this possibility together with you. Can we have a meeting? So I took the meeting with one of the sales guys that was responsible for that segment. And after 12 minutes, we already knew. I mean, he came in with, on paper, looked like a multi-billion opportunity. I mean, huge. Unfortunately, but very politely, in a positive but diplomatic way, we were asking questions to see, does this have bearing for us? And unfortunately, in this case, we saw it doesn't. He will not realize it until 8 meetings later. So we will have wasted his time and ours. And here, a bad salesperson is like, yeah, they waste 8 meetings. The amazing salespeople they view the sales funnel as a T, not as a V. They speak to, and they decide to double down on a smaller number, but there they go all in. So going back to integrity, so in this case, we said after 12 meetings, we didn't even continue the meeting. We said, look, sir, we already know that you will not buy from us because this and that. And he got maybe Turkey is a slightly more hierarchical society than Sweden. So he got super upset. He was like, more or less like, do you know who I am? Like, I'm this powerful player. And we were like, sir, we know. We know. But we are trying to be nice with you because you will not buy from us again, because you will see it in 8 meetings, but we already know it. So we're trying to save you time. On the other hand, if you have these circumstances, we can serve you. When he calmed down, he was like, wow, this is the nicest thing I've ever experienced. You guys are for real. I would totally remember what you said, and I'll get back to you when we have that in place. I have a similar experience with another company where we were growing extensively within Hewlett-Packard, so HP, and where country after country, business unit after business unit were buying from us. And then a team from France reached out and said, yeah, we heard about you from the Belgian team and the Dutch team. We have a PO, so we have a purchase order. We have the amount all set. And I just asked them, so what are your goals? I mean, great, but what are your goals with this? And they had misunderstood the value we could bring. So we said, look, we we would love to take your order, but we cannot. That is not what we solve. We solve this. If you have this, we gladly work with you. These guys didn't get upset. So they were like, oh, okay. 3 weeks later, they called back and said, you guys are for real? The trust you gave in the last meeting, I mean, we basically had money in the pocket to give you. And you turn it down. That's the real deal. We now have the triple amount. We can skip the pilot. We have the triple amount. And we have what you can solve. So by daring to say no and have the integrity, you gain the key currency in business, which is trust.
So this is really important because if sometimes the desperation to get revenue is so high that a founder or a mature sales leader will say yes, and then they have to reconfigure what the company becomes. So it's very important to understand the customers that you take on define the company you become. So if you're trying to sell this and they're asking for this and you have to change to this, it's changing who you are becoming as a company. So it has profound implications long-term on the vectors on how you're going to grow. So it's very important to know when to say yes, when to say no, to direct your resources for future growth.
Mm-hmm. And for our listeners to understand, what type of deals are we working with, like money-wise? Is it, usually you sell for SaaS businesses that it's a monthly deal or a yearly deal? And how big of deals are we talking
amazing
about?
question. So our history, which you can almost hear on the name, Megadeals, is from the multi-billion-dollar deals. So I've been personally involved with over 100 Fortune 500 companies, largest deals, over a long, long period. Now, we have decided, because after a while, you're like, do I want to spend 10 more years with the big corporates? Or the decision was like, no, I prefer to spend it with promising companies that do something good for the world, where we can be David beats Goliath. So we've taken some of the superpowers, made it available for companies more like, I mean, we have bigger and smaller than this, but 20 to 200 employees, 20 to 300 employees. So kind of scale ups. And you asked about industries. So again, the kind of fifth and sixth kind of complexity. The typical industries are SaaS, but not like the Dropbox SaaS, but more like the business system SaaS, or any kind of like supply chain management SaaS, blah, blah, blah. Industrial equipment. More than half our clients are sustainability tech. And then the last one is professional services. But most of the time, and the reason why we have chosen those is we can work directly with the CEO, marketing leader, and sales leader. We've built this SaaS platform that solves the things that the IBMs can do, but they can spend €1 million per year on it. Our clients cannot. So we brought it down to less than 1/10 of the cost in a very disruptive way. I don't want to pitch too much on this in this session,
but basically for the price of a head count, they get this $1 million machinery plus people to run it for them that they cannot get up and running in 40 days. So basically for a fixed fee per month, they get all this complexity taken off their hands, and it means the rainmaker, this Uber salesperson, the founder-led person, can execute doing what he does best.
So the most important thing here is to actually close the deal. Since the
both do the multi-threading early on, and then throughout, both opening the doors multi-threaded, running the active pipeline multi-threaded, closing the deal multi-threaded. So and that requires two main things that these scale-ups cannot do without spending the $1 million or €1 million per year, which is amazing stakeholder maps and a media machinery that's very sophisticated that infiltrates the gym flow.
Yes.
And we've done it in a way where it becomes super disruptive. So we've grown from 0 to almost 3 million euros in just 22 months. And we're already profitable and with customers in 4 continents. That's very unusual for like a B2B play.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just amazing. But for
Still small though.
Yeah, still small, still a lot. But I guess you're really good at closing deals, for your company. Let's play a little mind game, and let's imagine that I'm a founder of a SaaS.
Yeah.
That my clients are big retailers. So I'm a fashion SaaS.
Yes, love it.
And
Met such a company yesterday, by the way.
oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And my so my goal is to close as many big retailers. So 1,000 to 2,000 employees plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the average check is like 50,000 euros per month,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
So what is my line of action? So I have this problem that I don't have clients. I need clients, so my so I become profitable. So what is the step-by-step action plan of you so for example that you would suggest I do?
Right.
Yeah.
So we would first together with you look at what kind of fashion retailers do you mean? Is it all side? Because I mean, there are fashion retailers having one store. You said no, it's maybe 100 stores and up, something, I don't know. And then we say in which countries, and you go, well, the EU, maybe adding, I don't know, North America, I don't know, whatever geographical scope. And then you say, well, these are the 110 fashion retailers I'm looking at. Then the second step is to ask, what is the ideal stakeholder map? So ISM, to be a bit geeky. So what are the key stakeholder groups and actual roles that you need to formally win or informally win to get your deals? And then we actually take that spec and we do the research on those stakeholders, because we've noticed that medium-sized companies, they have no one doing that. So that's a service we do packaged with our SaaS platform. So we then research and say, okay, so for these 110 fashion retailers, these are the 700 critical names. And you kind of approve it. Then we turn on the media targeting to those 700s. All of a sudden, they see your
But
face.
first, we'll create the messaging.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
Good.
so you will say, because you
Thank
don't have a lot of time, you probably don't have a marketing agency yet. You may not even hired a marketing person. Yeah, but we don't have any messages. So
He probably has a marketing person.
and maybe you do, maybe you don't. So what would happen is you would talk, and based on you talking about what your company is about, we would help translate your messages into some key messages, get your face created. You'd give us some images, and we'd build 8 ads, right? Talking in different ways about your category,
For all the
subcategory.
social platforms and the news sites and all that.
So you'd end up having basically, it's about 800 versions of these 8 ads. So it's a lot of work to be done.
And what type of ads are we talking about? Facebook ads, LinkedIn
Yeah,
ads?
so they would appear on your Facebook feed, in the Insta stories, on LinkedIn as sponsored posts, on
YouTube.
news sites. Yeah, on news sites, as you know, around the articles, you see your face, your brand, some, whatever you do. So it kind of appears across the media landscape in a subtle way.
So you kind of target those 700 companies.
Yeah.
And
700 individuals
700 individuals in
in
those
the 110 companies.
Okay,
So
so
it's very hyper-targeted. This is a very
So
important
this
distinction.
is super important. Like, one of our key innovations is we found a way to across, not just LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is too weak. And your stakeholders in the fashion companies, it's not their bar.
Yes.
LinkedIn, they have a LinkedIn profile, but they're more on news sites and Instagram, etc. So we need to reach them across those 5 platforms, but on an individual level. So all of a sudden, what happens and then after 4 weeks, we're live, and then you start to be super visible. Your company, your face, your references, your offering, your product, your problem statements, etc., your insights, but across all these channels. So after about 1-2 months, the game is shifted. We have a good example from Belgium.
Yeah, and I'll explain that. Yeah. So, and by the way, the old
Which is
way,
very similar, but a different industry.
so the old way to do the 100 accounts, right, would be not individual. It'd be company level. And then your media costs go through
Goes through the roof,
10,
yeah.
20,000 a month. So basically for a couple of thousand a month, we can give you great exposure to those. So the perfect example is a company called Vakir, a guy named Hans Constant. He'll be here today, by the way. He visit our couch session tomorrow. When he started his company, he closed his first deal. 6 months later, he came to us and said, I need to penetrate the 10 top pharmaceutical companies in the world.
Which is unusually narrow, by the way, but yeah.
Yeah, but very large. So starting with the countries around Belgium, Holland, France, Germany, but also the US. Within 100 days.
And very specific titles.
Yeah. So within 100 days, he had targeted the 500 key stakeholders in those companies. And he had what we call high engagement with all 10 companies, with high penetration even in the US. And if you looked at the stakeholder map, not just the operational level, but the C level. So, very senior people that
Or even the CEO of one of the largest pharma in the world. Yeah. Which is with the traditional one, it's almost impossible to engage that person.
And he only has 6 people in the company at the time. So he doesn't have a lot of time. So the way he would, literally driving, he would speak to Oscar, who is his point man to run the machinery, saying, look, this is the positioning, this is the message. So Oscar would draft up the messaging, and 2 days later he would get it saying, Hans, is this it? Yeah, just change this word, this and that.
But the cool thing, after already 100 days, Bakir and Hans are celebrities within these X 100 people. So when he's interacting with them, they're like, hi, Hans, and across Atlantic even, which is normally take years to reach that level.
And he's a real dominant authority in the industry. So he'd also call up and say, look, here are the 4 events that are happening this month. Please geo-pin those events. So all the attendees to those events would be exposed to his message to augment the impact of his being present there before, during, and after. And so...
And talking about events, do you still think that conferences as
important?
SuperNova,
Absolutely.
Why do you think they're important?
No, so there's if you look at the multi-threading again, there's also to close high complexity deals, it's not like as soon as a form fill in a meeting and boom, you sell. No, it's like playing chess. And both participating in podcasts, being on stage that we are tomorrow, are not, it's sometimes part of the top of the funnel where people detect us, but it can also be a confirmation for someone that we already speak to that these guys are important. What they say is making total sense. So, a combination with our very targeted stakeholder maps and the media machinery that targets them across the 5 platforms, you have great value of third-party media, which would be events, podcasts, but also PR. But not all companies can afford all of that in one go. So one of the things that we also do to actually accelerate our clients' participation on stage is to target conference organizers. So you say these are the top 10 conferences for my industry. I want to be a speaker there. So then we take your face and we put a headset on with the stage and everything, promoting you as a keynote speaker.
Yeah. Did you do the same for SuperNova?
We didn't, but we came in through a contact of John's. But we have done it in the past. We've done it in other companies as well. Where I remember one case where we had 0 traction in John's previous country, Canada. And we wanted to get into the oil and gas community around Edmonton and Calgary. So we were targeting the right companies, the media and everything. And we set up a breakfast event. I mean, we were nobody a few months earlier, but we targeted the right set, the organizer, the right setup, stakeholders around it. We fly in, TV is there, radio is there, the local newspaper is there, and the top players, and he was overbooked. That you cannot do without media. It's just impossible.
Fantastic. Yeah. So the way that so again, it's one of the threads of many kind of many contact points.
Yeah.
And how many contact points of the person, of the buyer, that he needs to see me? How many times does he need to see me?
Good
One
question.
of the highs.
Yeah, good question. So it used to be, I would say 20 years ago, you talked about 7 points of contact. That's completely not the case anymore because there's so much exposure now.
Yes.
So you're looking more like 50 to 100 plus exposures. Then you start to go, yeah, I've seen him before. Before it was less, but we were less exposed to influences. Now we're super exposed to influences. So the volumes are going up. But thanks to, in this case, for you, for your SaaS fashion-oriented company, we would target the 500 most important people. Since it's so narrow, we can target them 100, 200, 300 times each without the media budget going crazy because it's such a small community. And this is actually a side comment. The reason why this is not sold by any regular media platform is that they want to sell volumes. They don't want to sell the carve-outs.
Yeah, a couple of hundred exposures is not
No,
interesting
they don't
for
want to
me
sell
come
that.
in.
So when you speak to Meta or LinkedIn, they don't sell those packages. But since we built a software on top of that, we can go way tighter.
I mean, so many insights for the salespeople, or not only salespeople, also for the
How to orchestrate.
yes,
Yeah.
for I think that's really interesting how the sales market has evolved over the years. So 20 years ago, 7 contact points,
Yeah,
and
now it's
now
different, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it's so much more. So we have a lot of kind of young, aspiring, motivated salespeople. So the ones that are listening to us now, what is the advice that you would give? You know, they're just in their 20s, you know, they're just starting to close their deals, you know, they're super motivated to do even more. They're quite junior. What is your advice to them?
Well, first of all, decide whether you're going into a transactional business or into a complex B2B selling environment. If it's complex B2B selling, then make sure that they go to companies that are going to invest in having well-trained, better equipped, smaller, highly effective teams of which they want to be a leader in. And that means being enabled. So, of course, when they get hired, they should make sure that they have deal orchestration enablement enabled from us. Read the book, Megadeals.
Exactly. So
And
I mean, I'm the author of the book, so I'm obviously a bit biased, but I'm very proud of it. It's I think the best recognition for the book. It's very niche. It's for larger deals and high complexity, but it's mostly read by people that are in that space. And when I wrote it, my decision was to not write it for the broad public, but to write it for those that are actually in that space. So the best credential is that the real mega dealers say it's the best book they've ever read. And they say we put text, descriptions, and illustration of things they felt, but they couldn't verbalize. Plus, we add areas where they go, I should do that, but I'm not doing it yet. So if you want to accelerate into the higher tickets, which is also typically leading to higher compensation,
Yeah.
you should just go to megadeals.com. There's a book button there and buy the book.
Fantastic. So first identify the field that you want to go in, then read the book.
Yeah.
Then the third step
is make sure you get hired by those that are going to invest into an abled sales team.
Okay.
And make sure you focus on the things that you're really good and effective on and outsource the rest. You don't want to have to do the repetitive, boring
And use
tasks.
the gym flow to get hired.
gym
Right.
flow,
Yeah.
and then how do you identify your strengths and your weaknesses inside the salesperson? Because I could imagine that the salesperson, that they all should be kind of well read, they should be all extroverted. So could you bring some examples of actual weaknesses inside the salespeople that you could actually kind of outsource and delegate?
Yeah. Well.
No, so there's an inverted correlation between being great at selling and being good at documenting in your CRM. And there's the same inverted correlation between being great at selling and being good at mapping out your stakeholders. So our take on that is we do it for our clients because we already know the best salespeople are not good at. So this is kind of weird. Like the most beautiful CRM setups are made by the awful salespeople.
Oh.
That's actually really
that's a weakness, right?
Yes, absolutely.
If you're into documenting everything, probably you should be on the sales enablement side and not front facing.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
no. So our mission is to scale Rainmakers, and that encompasses even taking on things that we know the best commercial people are not doing this. Not that they don't can. I mean, they can do it, but they don't do it. They prioritize customer-facing time. They actually trust their own GPS so much that they quite often fly on intuition. Yeah,
but that's their penalty zone, and the object of a good organizational leader is to make sure people are put into their penalty zone where they're going to perform really well and take all the other things away.
Yeah.
And if I'm a good sales leader, I want to be in that penalty zone and have a backup team behind me to make sure I'm always
as a
there.
newcomer, if you're young, go in and actually play the support role for a super striker. Yeah, that's like active mentorship.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much advice already that we have now. 2 last questions, quick rounds. What is the superpower that a good salesperson should have?
Connecting the dots, being authentic.
And being good at orchestrating, knowing when do I play the tech people, when do I speak to the CEO, when do I push marketing,
And be on mission. You are there to help the customer.
yeah.
That's the
100%.
first and foremost.
The last question. What are your dreams and how do you get closer to it every day?
Oh, gosh, dreams. Well, my dream is that the 900 billion that we were going to be investing in the defense industry would actually be shifted over to climate tech and health tech and, cultivating.
First of all, that it wouldn't have been needed, right?
Okay.
That it would be doing something good for the planet and people rather than...
And how do you get closer to achieving your dream?
Oh, gosh.
You're helping closing climate tech deals.
Yeah.
That's how you get closer.
It is. It is.
And Christopher, for you?
Well, I think the personal angle of it is very difficult to answer. And I'm not sure, but the professional one, I see that Megadeals, we found a gap in the market, which is like a blind spot, how to do orchestration, especially when you're a growing younger company. I mean, we work with some bigger, but we're primarily focusing on the 20 to 300 employees, scale ups. To around them, we can become the biggest orchestration platform in the world. That's my professional goal, and we're already, which is unusual. Like clients headquartered in 4 continents already, and we've been picked up by big private equities that have identified that we're doing something disruptive, which is more effective and cheaper than anything they've seen. So I think we're on a good way.
And if I chunk that down to the Benelux, we work very closely now with IMEC. So ever since Sven started with iMinds, we've collaborated with them. Our first event here was in 2019.
When we were still a consulting business.
Yeah, we did something in Ghent in November, and we just did something in Eindhoven yesterday. And my vision for them would be to help increase the conversion rate of startups to scale-ups, to improve the 70% failure rate, to bring it down. So it's 30%.
And make more
succeed.
Belgian unicorns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a pretty good start with quite a few Belgian clients already. Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's a conversation that all these salespeople, not only salespeople, should have a notebook with them and kind of write down notes. So good luck to you tomorrow with your sofa sessions, and enjoy SuperNova.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.